Hello all. Welcome to tonight's Ward 10 City Council Candidate Forum, hosted by the Uptown Association, Lake Street Council, and Lowry Hill East Neighborhood Association. I'm Solomon Gustavo, a Metro reporter for MinPost, and I'll be tonight's moderator. The main focus of tonight's forum will be on community safety. The Chapter Ward consists of the neighborhoods of Whittier, South Uptown, Lowry Hill East, / the Wedge, East Bidimakaska, and East Harriet. Your candidates for the Ward 10 City Council seat include Aisha Chuptai, Alicia Gibson, Katie Jones, Uba Noor, Chris Parsons, and David Wheeler. Thank you all for being here. This is how the forum tonight will work. Candidates will be given up to 2 minutes to respond to 4 predetermined questions, which were generated from questions submitted by constituents. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond. Next, we will have a lightning round consisting of 3 questions. Candidates will have up to 1 minute to respond to those. After the lightning round, candidates will each have up to 1 minute to address any statement made by another candidate, a little rebuttal section. And lastly, candidates will have up to 2 minutes for final remarks. Candidates will be selected to answer in a random order. There will be a timer visible on screen. When you see yellow, you have 30 seconds remaining, and red indicates your time is up. That's how the forum works. How the voting works in the election is ranked choice voting. The ballot will ask you to rank your first, second, and third choices in the upcoming municipal election. If your first choice candidate is eliminated, your second choice will receive your vote. If your second choice is eliminated, your vote flows to your third choice. At the conclusion of counting, the winner will be the candidate who receives the majority of active ballots. As you consider the candidates tonight, please consider not only your first choice, but also your second and third choices. All right, let's do this. So the first question is, do you support or oppose ballot measure number 2? Why or why not? First up, if we can hear from Chris Parsons.
All right, well, thanks for having me. And just to get right to the question, I do not support ballot measure number 2 because it will hurt transparency, accountability, and efficiency. We need ballot measure number 2 does not, the proponents of it have not given us a plan. That's probably the biggest concern that I have with it, is that we haven't been given a plan. We've just been given a framework, a name of a public safety department, but we can accomplish all of the goals of what the proponents for Yes for Minneapolis want to do within the existing charter. There's nothing within the existing charter that allows us to look at how we're delivering services for our 911 calls. The only thing that this charter amendment allows is for a council, either this council or down the road, to one day decide to do away with police officers. And to me, that would be extremely reckless. So what I would prefer is that we're going to be hiring a lot of police officers in the next 3 years, about 250 police officers. We need to make sure that we're hiring police that reflect our values, that are rooted in our community, and that also have different kinds of backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, such as training and also racial and ethnic diversity. I feel that by doing that, we can better serve the community, but we're also going to have to invest in these folks and make sure that they have proper training. And that's the most important piece. So I am a no on ballot question number 2.
Thank you. Uba Noor.
There is my name is Uba Noor, and I vote for no because it doesn't show any plan into this. I agree with Chris, because when we say yes to that position, that we divided the police, and we know there is always good people and there is always bad people. We need to have assessment done in our police system when we hiring people. We need to be able to hire more policing in our system There need to be assessment before they get hired. We have to check background check. We need to have hiring people in the community who knows what is happening in our community. We need a public safety. We cannot say yes to that. So I say no. We need transparency. We need more policing, because now in Minneapolis, people not feeling safe. People are really selling their homes, if you know it. You can look up in your neighborhood next to you. We never have for sale houses, and people love Minneapolis, but they're moving out because of unsafety. So in order to have transparent, we need a plan. If there is no plan on the table, there is nothing we can do. Every life goes with a plan. Without plan, we cannot change. So we need accountability, and we need transparency, and we need more policing. So I say for no. The second question, that amendment.
David Wheeler.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gustavo. Thanks to the Uptown Association, the Lake Street Council, the Wedge Neighborhood, and then all of the other co-sponsors that are having this forum. Public safety is the first issue that people talk about when you're knocking on doors. I was out this afternoon and talked with a number of people, and they told me about some really bad crimes right in their neighborhood. And this was a really pretty good neighborhood that you would think would be pretty stable, but the cars have been stolen, houses have been broken into, people have been beat up. People are concerned about their personal safety. So the question before us is really the second ballot charter amendment. And that charter amendment, I will vote no. I think it's a poorly conceived idea. I think it's a dangerous experiment. Let us not forget that 9 city council members stood in front of a sign in Powderhorn Park that said defund the police, and make no mistake about it. This charter amendment is about defunding the police, and some favor abolishing the police. That is a mistake. Do we have to have radical transformation of the police? Absolutely. Do we have to be able to root out people that are bad actors with discipline or ultimately removal? That we have to do. But this amendment is a dangerous experiment. It is an attempt to take over part of our city government that should not lie in the hands of 13 council members and the mayor. Now, many of the things that are in it make some sense about taking away certain things from the police department that they shouldn't be doing. But it's a bad plan. I will vote no, and I will encourage all the people I know to vote no too. Thank you.
Alicia Gibson.
Yes, hello. I guess I will join this chorus of saying that I personally am voting no. I am recommending that people vote no on this amendment too. 2 simple words. It is divisive and it is chaotic. As Uba said, there is no plan. Now, I've heard some people say, well, yeah, there's a plan. And some people talk about their notions of what a Department of Safety they think should look like, will look like. But, that's not what's on the amendment. And as somebody trained in the law, especially if I read something like an amendment to, our city constitution, what is in front of me is what matters. And, I was having a conversation with a gentleman who moved here recently from Houston, and we started talking about it, explaining what this Amendment 2 was. And he said, Department of Public Safety. So does that mean it's like better trained police officers? And honestly, I had to stop for a moment and think, well, I really don't know, because the way that I think about it, what a Department of Public Safety is that it might be an umbrella organization that had different kinds of aspects of public safety kind of being administered through it, which really caused me to realize I myself don't understand what this is actually supposed to be or why it would be. The other thing is, I'm going to age myself with this question. If you guys remember a commercial, Where's the Beef? There is no actual police reform to this amendment. So where is it? I will be voting no. Some people listening to this are going to vote yes, because it's a symbolic gesture that really captures for them the disgust they feel towards the Minneapolis Police Department, which, in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, which I can actually sympathize with and understand. So we will still need to do police reform. So
Thank you, Ms. Gibson.
Vote for me.
On to you now, Aisha Chugtai.
Hi, yes. So, I know that we deserve to live in a community where everyone is safe and where we have our needs met, where we can reliably and safely and with confidence ask for help and call on help when we need it, and have trust that doing so will not further harm on ourselves, on our loved ones, or on members in our community. And that's why, I'm planning on voting yes for building a new Department of Public Safety. I think it's a first step to approaching our public safety in a holistic and public health centered perspective. Right now there is no trust or accountability between our community and the Minneapolis Police Department. And a part of that is about, who is in charge of them. And then, I think this amendment moves that accountability from being in the hands of our one mayor to a more representative and democratized body, the city council. And it's a part of, how we build a more democratized and reflective public safety system that actually serves our community's needs.
Katie Jones.
Hi, thank you for the question, and thanks to all the organizing groups for this forum. I just want to start off by saying, we all want safety in our community for all of our neighbors. And the question really is, how do we get there? And I want to stress that we not make decisions out of fear. I know that we've all experienced, very traumatic things, especially for through the last year and a half. And so it's important for us to talk about how we can support the safety of our neighbors in times of need, and come at that in a cool-headed way. I also want to mention that, our toolbox is currently limited. We've had effectively one tool for the last 150 years, and it's time to expand that toolbox to one that is reflective of our community. I support question 2, and our campaign has been an active participant in collecting signatures for that. It's crucial for creating a new community-first public safety department. For too long, we've seen armed response as the first and only tool to address public safety, and it's time to think more holistically about public safety and ensure we have the right responders for the right situations. I also want to note that I've worked in City Hall in the coordinator's office, and I'll mention that, there's in this charter, there's just one line about the creation of that office, just like there's one line in the charter detailing a number of our departments. Creating the full structure of a public safety department will be detailed in ordinance, just as the rest of our departments are currently laid out in ordinance. So, if this is passed, the police will still be here in Minneapolis because they are codified in ordinance. Also note that anyone in this forum advocating against the amendment will be powerless to enact any reform against the police, because the authority will be maintained within the mayor's office. So that, I'm in favor of the ordinance of option 2. The changes will not happen overnight. We'll be detailing out those plans.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Appreciate the answer. The next question will be a follow-up to everyone's response to the amendment. So I'll first begin with those who oppose it. I'll ask the question now and then kind of run through that group. Feel free to ask me to ask it again if that's what you would like. Start with Ms. Gibson. As an opponent, how do you square your opposition to the amendment with the budgetary reality of increased police costs, due in part to settlements, worker comp claims, et cetera, and decreased services both in policing and other city services?
Well, I'm not really sure what the connection is between Amendment 2 and the budget. I've been told, like what Katie Jones just said, that in fact, the police won't be decreased. This is not a defund the police amendment. So that connection is not really obvious to me. We have a settlement issue. We've had some large settlements. There are some questions as to whether or not some of these should have been as large as they have been. One thing that I would like for us to pursue is how we can have police officers carry their own liability insurance. There are a lot of professions, my husband is in one of them, where people do have to carry their own liability insurance. So I think that if we're looking at that particular issue, that is something that we might want to pursue. But let's be clear that our city cannot function without the essential service of policing, law enforcement, and public safety. If we don't have those things, businesses are not going to be coming back here after COVID. They are already leaving. As Uba said, people are fleeing the city. We have a historic 8% vacancy rate in our rentals. Last year, it was 2%. People are voting with their feet. So if you think that we have a budget crisis now, if we do not have proper law enforcement to revitalize this city and to stabilize it, that budget crisis is only going to be much, much worse.
Uba Noor, what do you make of the follow-up question?
Yeah, I agree with Alicia Gibson. Yes, really, when we really thinking about the overall and the goal about our community, number one is safety, and we saying liability. We cannot have people to carry their own liability when they're working and work duties. That's why it's really important to look both sides. Yes, I know, yeah, we want a really tough time in America, especially in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I'm really sorry what happened should not happen. And we don't want that to be happen again. But what are we want our future? What do we want to leave behind? Because matter of time, I'm not gonna be here for the rest of my life. After 2 years, I'll be gone. The policy that we create will affect our community as a whole. Now in Lake Street, look everywhere. The places, the business owner is empty. I am one of the business owner. I used to have a business in Lake Street. Mine is already closed. So many others. So what is gonna happen in our future if we don't have law enforcement, if we don't have police in our system? What are we gonna do? The community will vanish. So every minority, we have a lot of minority group in here. Soon the redistricting is coming around. What is gonna happen in this community? This community will not be here if they don't feel safe. And people around us not feeling safe. They can't afford the rent. We need more policing. We need to look into the problem that we actually facing. What can we do better as a community right now? That's what we need. So we need to fix that. So in order to help our community to longer run, because our future and our life, it depends on that. The decision that we make today, because of what we're feeling inside, it's not gonna help or long run our community. So we want to think about it before we take the action. And we have to really think about the deeply in
Thank
our
you.
what we
Thank
can
you for
do.
the answer.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Yes.
David Wheeler.
Managing the city budget is an important piece. And as president of the Board of Estimate and Taxation, we had a vote a little over a week ago to set the maximum tax levy. That's not the tax increase, that's the levy that the council can spend up to of 5.45%. Council President Bender, who represents our ward, wanted a much higher tax levy. And because she thought we were going to have a lot more expenses coming up with this whole new public safety department. She was voted down 5-1. Seems to me we have to be good stewards of the resources that we have. I think the settlements were far too high. I don't think there's any question about that. Part of that is because of all the publicity around it and national lawyers coming in and helping to extract those dollars from our city. Should people have been given compensation for the awful things that happened? Absolutely, yes. But I don't think we ought to be in the 10, 20, $30 million range. So we have to have public safety. If we think the budget is in a crisis now, I agree with the two previous speakers that as people begin to pull back their businesses, if they move out of town, we're going to be in a much bigger financial crisis than we are right now. If we don't make sure that people feel safe in their homes, that people feel safe in their businesses, that we don't promote public safety in a new way that removes the troublesome officers, then we're going to be in deep trouble. I'm a strong believer that we need to move forward, and it's going to take time.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. On to you, Chris Parsons.
So I can square it pretty easily, and that's because the alternative to voting no is way worse. Voting yes will do way more damage. I have, living in Minneapolis since 1977, since I was 2, I have the benefit of not only experience, but also perspective. We have never in our history had a reckoning like we have had in the last year and a half. And there has never, ever been the political will to make change on the Minneapolis Police Department. We've wasted a lot of innocent lives and a lot of money on the police department, but that doesn't mean that we just say, oh, we don't know what we're doing, forget it, you guys just have a vote and then we'll figure it out later. That's irresponsible. That's why we're here. We're here to make those tough choices and those decisions. And we, like I said, we have the political will. We'll have the leadership in place, and we will have the administrators to put forward that vision. Training like Chief Ardondo and the mayor are starting to implement with the duty to intervene training and also the early intervention system. Things like that will help us make officers more accountable and give us better service. Also, tools that have already been enacted with body cameras on all the time. Change in the arbitration process at the state of Minnesota. So we'll have better outcomes when we try to fire and get rid of bad apples. I've been on the fire department in St. Paul for 21 years. Our training is low because we're not investing. We need to invest. That's where our priorities need to be, is investing.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. On to those who support the amendment. The follow-up for the two of you is how do you assuage concerns about lack of a plan to move forward with the Department of Public Safety? Katie Jones.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I think I somewhat answered it in my first answer, in that, just like with all of our departments, we set the framework in the charter, and then we set the ordinances that details their operations from there. And, I've been part of creating policy in the city of Minneapolis and made draft ordinances that have later became policy. And so I'm familiar with that process. I'm also, I'm an engineer. I like to put things together in terms of a process and kind of institutionalizing things. And so, the way I see this rolling out is, so we passed the amendment, and 30 days later, we have to decide on the new head of the department. And that can be, for interim, that can be the current chief, which I think would make a lot of sense for the time being. And then we have, a period of community engagement to understand what are all the tools in the toolbox that we want to put in this public safety department, and have, a very robust, ideation amongst our community to making sure we're checking all of those boxes, learning, also researching from around the country about what works, and then starting to fill out that department. I'm all about researching, piloting, and scaling. And so research is the first step. Piloting in small bucket or in small areas of the city or in small situations. I think that's the second step. And then from there, we take our lessons learned and scale. So that's the way we do things, and that's the way things are done in business. That's the way things are done in academia. That's the way things are done throughout government too. And so we need to make sure that we at the city level here are doing that, and taking the best lessons learned that we can from around the country, from our own community, and applying them here and scaling.
Aisha Chukdai.
So, we know already what the things are that keep our communities safe, right? The things that actually prevent crime and result in healthier, safer, and more connected communities. And that, that looks like making massive investments, right? Moving money from enforcement and criminalization only model to a holistic investment model, right? One where we are fully investing in housing in the short term, in the tools that keep people in their homes, like rent control and strong eviction protections in the long term, building more public housing and making sure that folks who are struggling the most within our current housing system, who often have the most amount of experiences with law enforcement, are cared for and have their needs met. It looks like investments in transportation and making sure people are able to get from place to place in a way that is efficient and effective and is safe. And that looks like advocating for zero fare public transit to make sure that poor and working class people are not criminalized and don't have unnecessary interactions with law enforcement while trying to get to work or get back home or go to school. And then it looks like, making sure that all workers are treated with dignity and respect in their workplaces. Those are all things that the city can do. Specifically, that looks like, passing fair scheduling ordinances and making better investments in wages of workers and using the tools of project labor agreements and prevailing wage to raise standards for all workers and strengthening our wage theft enforcement mechanisms in this city. That's how we keep people safe.
The next question is, what is your strategy to reduce crime in the ward? Alicia Gibson.
Well, first of all, we do need more police officers. We are down a third of our force. At any given time, there are 5 officers on duty for the Fifth Precinct has 12 officers on duty at any one time. And this is down, from, 1820. We cover from Edina all the way to Lake Street. This is a huge area of people. And so that's the number one thing, is that we have to support our chief and our former inspector, Amelia Huffman, who is the one who's doing the hiring. She's an extremely competent person who lives in the city, who has an investment here and has created an actual, there's a law that says we can't require officers to live in the city, but she has created a point system where people are getting more points for living in the cities, more points for being trained, have education background in social services, education, human qualities. And she's also partnering with experts who are, she just did this a month or so ago, came before the city council, had the funding to engage with the citizens about what kinds of officers they want, what kinds of training and background. And so that would be, one of my priorities. The other thing is that we do need to keep building these partnerships between communities and neighborhoods and law enforcement. And, I serve as a president of the Lowry Hill East Neighborhood Association. I was the crime prevention, the liaison with the police department before that. And there are a lot of things that neighborhoods and communities can do in partnership with law enforcement that are outside of law enforcement. And so we have to do that. That's what I call the life affirming infrastructure of peace. And we certainly need to be growing that as well.
Chuktai. Chuktai, you're next. Yes. I said your name really quickly. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So, at the core of violence prevention is an understanding of where crime, comes from. And so we know that crime is something that is a product of people in our community experiencing scarcity. It's not a mark on their morality. We live in a world and in a community that violates our humanity and makes it really difficult for us to make our day-to-day life work. And so, the way we meet that is it's at the scale of meeting individual needs of people. And then it's about connecting people to community and building the resources and structures around them to support folks for the long haul. So what that looks like, for supporting individual needs is, making sure that we have heating and cooling centers in our city for when it's, really cold and really hot outside, so that people who are experiencing homelessness, experiencing, like other forms of struggles are able to have like a very basic and core need met. It looks like, having more sharps boxes and stuff like that around in our public spaces. Collectively, that looks like investing in more safe use sites and Narcan distribution and training in our communities. It looks like, investing in full service community schools and in our youth, and making sure that they are supported and cared for and know that their community is going to have their back. And it's also about listening to survivors who overwhelmingly tell us that they want us to approach safety and violence prevention, not from a criminalization perspective, but from a public health centered perspective.
Uba Noor.
Yes, really, there is one thing I will say about a policing and community. There is our trust in the police is broken. So in order to feel safe and protected and everyone will be the same page, we need to bring that trust back. So we need to hire people in the community who can be policing, who can be, eliminating for crime. Right, yes, Minneapolis crime is really high. The other day I was crossing the street. It was about to happen to me. Almost a woman ran over me and I was just walking. The walking sign was there. The light was green. She ran over me almost. And I just jumped back and she saw, yell at me with shouting. And she wouldn't do if the police were around. People, when there is no police around, people will do whatever they want, whatever they police for. So we know, yes, we have the community. We need to, get engagement back. The other thing I see, people have a mental problem with the police and the way they see the image. This need to be solving. This need to be actually healing. We need to engage at the community and at their level, and everyone in the community need to engage back because it's our city. We need to make safe. The way we can make safety is that we need to actually more policing. We need more policing. We need people in the community to be hired. We need to look into the system, how we can make fix it. Because in my Carmel or somewhere, people are just violence. I don't know what's happening to our community anymore. People are just violence. They gunshot many people, in the street. They shouldn't by walking you. They will shot you. Just walk away because we're feeling scared and there is more crime than we ever had. So that's why, because there is no police around.
Thank you, Ms. Noor.
So thank you.
Katie Jones.
I just want to start by saying, that neighborhoods and communities are safe when all of our neighbors can lead healthy lives. That means clean air, water, safe streets, truly affordable housing, good paying jobs, and freedom from the fear of violence. And to get there takes focusing on the basics, following the science, and leveraging solutions that tackle multiple issues. One of the first is stability. Stability is critical, and focusing on making sure people have homes is one of the foundations. Second is ensuring financial security. I want the city to invest more in clean energy, especially clean energy job training for electricians, HVAC technicians, solar installers, all of those types of things. Those are local jobs that cannot be outsourced. And they're also really good paying jobs, good paying careers. And so if people can get into those jobs and have that financial security, they're less likely to go into crime. Reducing crime also means thinking differently. And so, for example, taking carjacking. Why not put a higher cost on the transaction of selling the catalytic converter that has been stolen from, a number of Priuses? We have several resource recovery centers in Minneapolis, and let's make sure that the catalytic converters that are sold have to have proof of ownership. We also know that crime, spreads like a virus. Containing it is important, and using a variety of tools for violence prevention is really going to be key. We need police, but we also know that police are really responders. They're not preventing crime. And so making a focus on that prevention is really, really the first step. I think folks would rather, a pound of prevention is worth an ounce of cure, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is really the way we want to be going. And so that's going to be my approach to making a safer ward.
David Wheeler.
Yes, thank you. I was compelled to run for Ward 10 City Council after the murder of George Floyd and the events that followed. The city council, 9 of them standing in front of defund the police sign in Powderhorn Park. And I think it's really important that we listen to each other, those of us who have different viewpoints and opinions. We need to sit down and work together, because not all the truth is on one side or the other. The truth can be met in the middle. We need to have good community policing first. We need to have neighborhood organizations that are involved. We need to listen to small businesses and to neighborhoods and associations. They need to be part of the solution. Faith communities, nonprofits, all of us need to come together as a community to help return safety. It isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take a long time. We're going to obviously need new police officers and very different police officers than we have now. We have to be able to remove and discipline and remove those officers that are racist and are violent. There's no question. We cannot wait. It's been 100 years of this stuff. It's got to stop. But we need to work together to make this happen. And I'm willing to do that. And I have the experience to do that. Thank you.
Mr. Parsons.
Yeah, so the question specifically was, what is my strategy to reduce crime in the ward? And I actually minored in criminal justice. So I do know that, we can reduce crime by reducing opportunity for criminals to perpetrate crime, but then also by the deterrent effect. So if people see police around, or if they think they're going to get caught, they're less likely to commit the crime. Safety is like a network, right? So it's what people can do for themselves, and all the way up to neighborhood associations disseminating information. And then there's also what government can do. So, government can coordinate with neighborhood associations through crime prevention specialists, things like that. So, but we also do provide law enforcement officers. So we need to provide more officers. We need to provide better trained officers, and we also need to rebuild the trust within the community. So I talked before about better training and hiring officers from within, but I also, and I've been talking about this for months, incentivize officers to live in the communities that they work. So through down payment assistance on a home, or through rental assistance, some kind of housing assistance, and then also hire on the front end. So state law says that we can't have a residency requirement for officers, but I know, given my background, that we can put hiring incentives and hiring preference for people that live in the community. One also thing that I have experience in, and that's what we're doing on the St. Paul Fire Department, is we have a program where we have like a pipeline for youth into the fire department. Minneapolis Fire Department is doing it. We need to do that. That will help rebuild trust, and we can grow our own police officers.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons, for answering that question. On to question 4 of the evening, which has to do with disparities. Our community suffers from some of the greatest racial disparities in the country across many social, educational, economic, and justice system metrics. How does this inform your approach to public safety? Katie Jones.
Yeah, this is informing my view of public safety, because it's clear that what we've been doing for the last 150 years isn't working. And so it's time to try something new. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And so it's fundamentally time to try something new. And some of the loudest voices in our community calling for something new are our communities of color. And so that's why, another reason why I'm in favor of a public safety department where we can expand our toolbox and we're not relying relying on the mayor's office entirely for solving and addressing public safety. And I want to keep reiterating that, you know, everyone who's here who is saying that, well, I want to reform the police, I want to reform the police, council will not have the authority to do that unless we vote yes for question 1 or sorry, question 2. And so we can talk all day about wanting police reform, but the people in this forum will be powerless to do anything for that unless we vote yes for number 2. And so, you know, public safety in terms of just policing is one part of that, the disparities that we have in our city. I've talked about how, you know, we really need to be focusing on housing and making sure that folks are stable. We need to be focusing on jobs that are really career builders. We need to be focusing on active transportation and, you know, building a 15-minute city where people can get around in a 15-minute bus ride, bus ride, bike ride, walk or roll. To their everyday destinations. You know, it's yeah. So thank you so much.
Uba Noor.
Really, we actually thinking trying new. Trying new is not the right word, because in America we have 150 years in police system that was working, that was protecting, that cannot be where we're supposed to be. When we were away work, somebody was taking risk to save people's life and to do the best. Research, when we're dealing with human life is different than, you know, building or, you know, object or something like that. So we need public safety is number 1 in order our economic to grow and our people to do well in society. We actually need to have safety, number 1. Second, employment. We need investment in our community. We need to look up to each other. We need to create more jobs. We need to have more affordable housing. We actually don't have enough even housing. We have more homeless in the street. We're thinking about, you know, devoting police. That's not the right thing. Trying new is not, when you try something, 150 years, something that's been working, something happened in the middle. We don't even know why it happened. It should not happen, but it happened. We have to deal with it. We have to learn how we can deal with it and move on that. We cannot left our society behind and do new, trying something new. We need a police. We need to be feeling safe in our community. I live this neighborhood. I love to walk around, and everybody's feeling like that. People, there is a lot of people, business owner, they are home. They don't want to be, you know, get away from Minneapolis. But how can we do it better society? How can we connect to each other again? I know we become too desperate to do something new. We cannot do something new. This is a human life we're dealing with. We need to do something together as a community and help our community to unite again. Thank you.
Chris Parsons.
Just first of all, I want to address that. If we, it was just stated that if we do not pass this amendment, that we will not have any, that as city council people, we will not have any say in any reforms. That's, as Joe Biden would say, malarkey. As a city council person, you have power of oversight. You have power on the budget. You have power to call the department head on the carpet. And then you also have the power to do what our city council, what I wish they would do more of, is talk to each other and persuade and make an argument and, you know, and work things through the political process. So the city council does still have a lot of power. I've seen it in action since 2005. Ian Bremmer, who's expert in international relations, when he saw Minneapolis talking about this whole defund the police, have a public safety department thing, he said, when Minneapolis passes a public safety department, they will still have police officers under a different name. And so that's what we're going to have. Even if we pass this amendment, we're still going to have police officers. And they're still going to need training. They're still going to be responding to the tough law enforcement type calls that we ask police officers to do today. There's nothing that's going to change in our reality of higher crime, less case solves, more people being victimized than ever before in this city. So they're just going to have a different name. There's nothing in this amendment that addresses anything about reform. So I know people hate the word reform, but you know what? These are things that necessarily have not been given priority before. And like I explained, they will be given priority. As far as disparities, metrics, we need to have metrics. We need to have training. We need to have a pipeline. So we're growing our own officers, diverse officers with better training.
Alicia Gibson.
Yes, I couldn't agree with Chris more that this idea that if the amendment doesn't pass, city council members will have no control or say or input into policing reform is simply not accurate. Let's call it what it is. It's a way that some current council members are pointing fingers and not accepting responsibility for their role in this. Our chief actually, when he was hired, wanted more money in the budget for co-responders. This city council denied that. Our current chief wanted funding for an early intervention system. This current council denied that. There are budgetary things that have been going on that have kept very important reforms, policing reforms, from happening. And now to say that they're, bear no responsibility is really, something that is fine. A lot of us find very frustrating. The other thing is that this city council is actually in charge of the contract negotiations. They're the ones who sign it. They also participate in it. And I think that Chris was kind of walking up to this. If this thing passes, this amendment passes, we still have the union contract. And the bottom line is that the union contract is the number one roadblock to policing reform right now. And so we need to elect people who will be better collaborators, better negotiators, and who are willing to say to the department, we are going to sue you. And we're going to work with partners like the ACLU and the NAACP to force a court to get a court to force you into a negotiated settlement agreement.
David Wheeler.
Yes, well, I think there's been a real abdication of responsibility by the current council. And they've had the authority to actually do most of the things that are in the charter amendment. They've decided not to. They disabused Chief Arredondo in a way that I found actually appalling. It was one of those things that helped me decide to run. They treated him in a very poor fashion. This is a person that has the skills and the vision and the drive and has been frustrated because of certain city council members. The disparity issue is massive. We have an awful history in the city of Minneapolis. The way that we have redlined people and moved them out of certain neighborhoods, not allowing them to purchase houses. The fact that minority ownership of homes has gone from maybe 30% down to maybe 11%. I mean, this is not acceptable. And we have to, in every part of our city, we have to figure out how it is that we can support and encourage diversity and growth and ability to bring in officers that are trained in de-escalation, that reflect the community in which they police. I have long advocated for offering incentives for officers to live in the city. That was allowed in Duluth. That was taken away by the legislature. But there's a lot of stuff that we need to do to make sure we have equity and get rid of disparities across our city.
Aisha Chupta.
So Minneapolis certainly has some of the most significant racial disparities in our country. And a part of that is because every single system in our city was designed to perpetuate racism. So it's our responsibility now to tear them down and build back up new systems of support and justice every single city program, from our transit routes to our social services to our community safety mechanisms, have to be re-examined to make sure that we are putting racial justice at the root of everything we do. That starts with us making sure that our budget priorities are aligning with the things that are going to address racial disparities. Right now, we spend 40% of our general budget on the Minneapolis Police Department. Instead, I want to see us invest in prevention and not criminalization of our neighbors. I want to see us focus on the needs and invest in community-led and centered programs like SEIU Local 26's Community Safety Specialist Program, that's rooted in community-based de-escalation and unarmed violence prevention. And it looks like, looking to the needs of needs responsive programming. So support, investing in programs like Cahoots and Rep Minnesota that have been pretty successful in other communities and are being tried out in ours. And then of course it wouldn't be, when we talk about safety, we also have to talk about, giving reparations to communities that are impacted by environmental racism. And it looks like preventing the destruction of families by ensuring city agencies are forbidden from collaborating with ICE and Border Patrol. And it looks like ending the surveillance and targeting of the Muslim community here.
It is now time for rapid fire questions after letting you candidates stretch out over 2 minutes. Your answers now will be limited to 1 minute. The first question is about constituent service. How will you structure your office on addressing constituent concerns? Uba Noor.
Yes, number one, there is a people in the office that now is working. They have to be part of it, and I have a plan that what I need to do the 2 years term if I've been selected. The things that I will do morely will be that reform my office, interviewing more people who are expertise, more environmental justice, more discussion table, bringing people on both sides and talking about the issues that we need to do in change in our community. So when people are here in the office and listening and have a plan on it, what to do, then they are more involved with the action plan. We'll follow with that. And also making sure that I'm listening carefully what has not been done in our community, and our city council did not do it, was they're not listening to their community.
Thank you, Ms. Noor.
Not being involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Parsons.
The first thing that everyone needs to realize is that this is a 24/7 job. One, I'm used to working a 24/7 job. I'm a firefighter. You haven't heard that before, haha. But also on top of that, I've also been an advocate, an elected advocate, and everybody had my number. When people had an issue in their jurisdiction, they called me, and I picked up the phone. If I wasn't able to pick up the phone, I responded right away. When you call my office, when I'm the next city council person from Ward 10, someone will answer the phone. And if no one answers the phone, well, we will make sure to call you back within an hour. What a refreshing thing to talk about constituent services, because that's something that we have not had for way too long. And that's what we need to get back to.
Katie Jones.
Yeah, I've heard from a number of folks when I've been talking on the doors that, they have been disappointed in constituent services from the current office. And I'll first say that I have no ambitions to be council president. I think it's time for this ward to pass the torch, and so that this ward can get back to, really focusing on the residents of Ward 10. I'll also say, there are 3 people in a council member's office, and so including the council member, and we're here to problem solve. And some of those problems have direct solutions, and so our office will try to get you to those departments as quickly as possible. And beyond that, if it's policy related, then we'll get to work thinking through the policies that can make sure that we're creating glide paths to making life more easy and more meeting our city's goals as a result.
David Wheeler.
Thank you very much. I have this little baseball card that I hand out everywhere I go, and on it is my phone number and my email address. As a pastor for over 30 years, I had to respond to calls 24/7, not life-threatening calls like a fireman, but I had to respond to calls all the time. And I think all of us have our stories about the terrible constituent service that has happened. I think what's really important is that you get back to people, and you get back to people quickly. You organize your office in such a way that you have to triage it. The most important ones get called right away, and you do a 1, 2, 3 ranking of that. And it's just constituents have to be able to get hold of their city council member, and you have to listen to your constituents, even if they disagree with you and don't like what you're doing. I will be great at it. I have a history of doing it for years. Thanks.
Aisha Chukte.
Yeah, so I think that the best form of a successfully run office is one that is responsive, it is accountable, and it is transparent in like the approach to staffing, policy making decisions and agenda setting for the community's priorities. And so, to do that in a way that is rooted in the community is about proactive community engagement. And I have spent the last I've spent my career working as an organizer on, engaging with folks in the community, building some of the most innovative programs that, bring residents who otherwise don't have as much access to their decision makers into halls of power.
Alicia Gibson.
Yes. So in the absence of, really effective constituent services in Ward 10, I have been in many ways filling that void in my neighborhood as the president of the Lowry Hill East Neighborhood Association. And so that's actually part of the reason why I decided to run. So many times, there's people that do the work in the background and, they don't jump in to actually run. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do the work, I might as well jump in and run for the seat. I was raised in a social worker's house, where it's so important the ethic was to care for people, to take care of their practical needs. So it's something that's really part of who I am. We are a diverse ward. And so I want to make sure that my staff is diverse, that everybody is in charge of constituent services, not just one person, and that people are speaking different languages so that we can communicate better.
Rapid fire question number 2. What or who are you most proud of in Ward 10 that no one knows about? Aisha Chukte.
Yeah, I spent my day earlier today at Jefferson Elementary School at the border of Ward 10, picketing in solidarity with our educators who are fighting really hard right now for better funding of our schools and better outcomes for our students. And I think that's something that I have like a lot of pride in. And we have like a lot of educators both in our schools, but also folks who do youth programming and other forms of education work who live in our community. It's a part of their expertise and insight is a part of what helped me think more holistically about how we support our community. And their work right now is it's incredibly valuable and we should be doing our best to support it.
Chris Parsons.
All right, great. So now I get to give a shout out to some very important people, but I won't name them because they're very shy. But ever since I started this campaign, I've had people reach out to me, and these are longtime residents, and they just offered their help. How can they help me? Such as giving me some background information on different politics in the ward, or just knocking on doors. And there are, I have about 4 or 5, I call them my senior advisors, but they show up every weekend with me to door knock. One calls me every single day, and usually I have to send her to voicemail because I'm just too busy. But they call me and they contact me. And you know what? They're not doing this for themselves. They're doing it because they love their city. because they love this neighborhood and this ward, and they're my heroes because they're doing all this.
Thank
They're
you,
not
Mr.
getting anything.
Parsons. On to you, Alicia Gibson.
I'm really proud of our neighborhood associations. I've lived in a lot of different cities, and the system that we have is a very unusual system that enables people to participate in democracy at the grassroots level. I've been able to go to the annual meeting of 4 of the 5. The 5th one had their annual meeting during our last forum, so I wasn't able to go. And I was completely blown away and inspired by the work that neighbors are doing together. Everything from, there's a church in South Uptown that has reconceived itself and has all of these amazing organizations now working out of it, including the neighborhood association. There was a report by a young woman who has done, water and greening work in East Harriet. And then there was our neighborhood association where we brought in mutual aid now as part of what we do. So I'm proud of us working together through our neighborhood associations.
Uba Noor.
I'm really proud of East African community. When I actually go to their meeting, they talk about empowering and how they can do the youth activity, and what their community has been not been contacted at all, and the service that they didn't get into it. So the thing really I like is that more people are really willing to help and trying to do their best in the community, while the city councilor or the people in the lead are not there to help them. So they supporting each other. They need resources, they go to this nonprofit organization, they help them basic things that they needed and connect with them resource. I really love this neighborhood. The other day when we were doing the walking street, I actually met with 2 young men holding a duck, lost duck. And they told us that they were standing in 2 hours outside.
Thank you,
they're
Mr.
reading that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there's amazing people.
David Wheeler.
I was interested in that story. These are wonderful stories from around the ward, and we all come in with sort of different perspectives and ideas. One of the things that two things I'm particularly impressed with. First of all, the Lynn Lake Business Association has got a lot of people that have hung in through some very difficult times in the last number of months. And I'm really proud of the fact that they've been doing that. They've had some art contests. They've done some other kinds of things, which is fantastic. The Jungle Theater is about to reopen. And one of the treasures of Minneapolis, one of the treasures of the United States is the MIA, the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, that is paid for by our tax dollars. It is an absolute beautiful place to go and to think and to see and to experience. We are so lucky in Ward 10 to have all these great arts communities and these businesses that make a difference.
The third and final lightning round question is, what is the best place?
Oh, no, we forgot.
Chance to answer.
Oh,
Sorry.
Katie Jones. No, I'm just so excited to just keep it. Yeah. Okay. Katie Jones, please can we hear from you?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I'm most excited and proud of in my particular neighborhood of the Wedge was, so when I first got here, I was a renter and I joined the neighborhood association board, and I was one of 2 renters on an 11-member board. And, in an 80% renter neighborhood, that just it didn't square with me. And so worked really hard to recruit a couple of renter friends. And from there, we built a movement to include more renter representation within our neighborhood association. And, I think it's that type of work and making sure that we're bringing the right people to the table, that we are having more representation. By the time I was board president, we had a majority renter board. And so continuing to do that work is going to be really important. And I'm so proud that we're continuing to build those types of organizations so that we can do, what Alicia was talking about, the mutual aid, and making sure that it's expanding to further into our community.
And now it's actually time for the third lightning round question, which is the best place to take out an out-of-towner in Ward 10. Alicia Gibson.
Oh my goodness, so many places. David stole one of my favorite places, the MIA, in part because it is such an amazing, coming together of all different kinds of artistic mediums through time. And, when I opened my bookstore, I called it heterotopia. And a heterotopia is a place or a moment in time in which very different kinds of elements coexist together. And so I think of the MIA as one of those. The other reason why I love it is that if you go up the stairs, and if you haven't done it before, please do, up to the second level and you look out, it is the most beautiful view of the city over Washburn Park. And I always love to take people there.
Ubanur.
The best place I like is walking around in the neighborhood, meeting with people and talking to them so that I can get point of view and how they feel and when they were, doing it. I actually met with the old woman when we were doing Noctar, and she has a beautiful artwork that was so beautiful everywhere in her room. So those people are really expert and they live in our neighborhood. So if we can bring those in and the young generation can be training about those old people, what a beautiful neighborhood we have. It's just need the resource and connection to each other. So I love it.
Chris Parsons.
Yeah, so I'm a history buff, and so I would have to say Lakewood Cemetery. And I joke around like, hey, there's a lot of possible votes in that cemetery. But that I just, there's so many, it's kind of a who's who of Minneapolis that are buried there. And it's also just a beautiful place to kind of get away from a lot of the traffic. We have a ton of traffic in our ward, and it's very busy. It's a good place to go and see the monuments and look at a lot of the history and names that are there. So I would say Lakewood Cemetery.
Isa Chuktai.
Yeah. So I'm Muslim and I'm Pakistani, and our way of showing love is by feeding people. And so when out-of-towners come to visit, I love bringing people to Eat Street, specifically stopping at Harry Singh's. Harry is an elderly business owner and a treasure of our community. And he makes like the most wonderful Caribbean food. It is incredibly spicy and really good. And he will share stories of his life and family and his reflections on how the community has grown and changed. And it's really a lovely experience. If you haven't gone, you should absolutely try it on 27th and Nicollet.
Katie Jones.
So I come from farm country, and we don't have a lot of bodies of water. And so the first places I take people who are from out of town are the lakes and the river and Minnehaha Falls. It's just it's kind of such a shock to actually see a waterfall in the middle of a city, and to then be able to go on a hike. It's just like it feels so remote, yet you're still in the middle of a city. And people always love it. We picnic all the time there when people come in from out of town. And so, yeah, just being able to walk to bodies of water or to bike or take the bus is just fantastic.
David Wheeler.
Gosh, I hear all this. We have such an amazing ward. It's fantastic. And several things have been mentioned are places that are among my favorite, but I think perhaps my very favorite is the Peace Garden. I walk over there on a regular basis. My elderly Labrador Retriever stopped walking over there about a year ago, but I still walk over there, and I go to the Rose Garden and I go to the Peace Garden. And it is a place where I shot my first video 12 years ago when I decided to run for Board of Estimate and Taxation and was elected a dozen years ago. It is a very magical place, and the Peace Garden helps you reflect and think. We need healing. We need healing in our city, and it's a place to go for healing.
Now is the portion of the forum for rebuttals. 1 minute offered to each of you to respond to anything said throughout the forum so far. We'll start. Felicia Gibson.
Yeah, so I guess there's a few points of rebuttal. First of all, I think that it has been said that police do not prevent crime. And, I take these kinds of questions seriously. And so I did the research on this. And that simply is not true. Police do prevent crime. There were researchers, 4 of them who worked interdisciplinary from across the country who published something in May of this year that showed not only does more police officers prevent crime, but they actually save more Black lives. And so that is something that I do think is not true. I want to point out that this idea of ideating what is going to happen in the future has been referenced as boxes to be checked off. And that's really the whole point of why I'm running, is that this city has been operating as though input from people is a box, and it's not a box. It's the whole thing.
Hey, Jones.
Yeah, so I actually have taken a look at that research, and I worry about what pieces from that research were taken in terms of their conclusions. And so I don't, I've also taken a look at a lot of research around, whether or not policing does deter crime, and it does not seem to be settled science. I'll just mention that. And then I think we also need to consider how eyes on the street are really critical for deterring crime, and what is the cost of those eyes on the street. Training police officers, I mentioned we do need police, but having them as their sole tool for prevention is very, very costly. And we have a lot of needs in this city, from housing to transportation to a lot of other things. We need to make sure we're able.
Thank you,
to
Ms. Jones. Ubanur.
Yeah, actually, we say preventing crime. When we see our community, we need more policing. And the other thing we need also more jobs, business. We need economical growth. People need to have something to do. If they don't have something to do, if you don't keep them busy, they become busy by involving something that's not right. So we need more policing. By the time they see, it will be actually when people around, they know what's happening if there is police around. Otherwise, they won't. So our community need to get together each other again. We have to unite it again. We have to come back to each other. We discredit, we become too separately, and that's not right. This is not right. Doesn't matter who we are, we all united. We need to unite it in our community and make it better place, better business, and better place to live. That's what we need.
Thank you, Mr. David Wheeler.
Well, I don't particularly want to take exception with anybody. I think there's almost too much of that going on in our world these days. I have to say clearly, I respect every single person who is here. It takes a lot of courage to run for office. And all of these people have demonstrated clearly courage to run. I think what's most important is that we figure out how we can, I said this before, how we can work together, how we can reach across lines that seem to divide us and separate us and come together to solve some of these problems. None of us have all the answers, even though we may sound like it sometimes. The fact is that we all need to come together and solve our problems together.
Icy Chuktai.
Yeah, so, I want to come back to the police being at the center of ensuring safety for our communities. I don't think that that's true. I know that, and our communities know that police react to crime happening. They do not prevent it from happening. And, the study that was referenced here earlier, the article that was referenced here earlier also made a really important note of the fact that the presence of more police in a community results in more violent interactions, at times life-ending, between police officers in the community. And I think at some point we should, question why we think that that's an acceptable cost that we should pay. I don't think that's okay. And I don't think people in our community do either. And then the other thing I want to just really quick address is that there's one person in the city that's in charge of the police, and that's the mayor.
Finally, Chris Parsons.
Yeah, so I want to address this fallacy that we only have one tool for public safety. 400 firefighters in Minneapolis would disagree. Hundreds of paramedics that work for North Ambulance and HCMC would disagree. The scores of hundreds of social service workers that work for the county would disagree. We have more than one tool, and the problem is that we haven't been properly coordinating it, or we also have not been properly funding it. Because it just has not been a priority, but now we do have the priority, and also kind of this language that we're going to have we're going to pilot different programs and all this, and then we'll put that in the public safety department. There's another term that's called proof of concept, and piloting is not a proof of concept.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. JD Jones, I said your name because we're going to start with you first, but what's coming up now is closing statements. 2 minutes. Just wanted to be clear for everyone first. But Katie Jones, you're up first. Your closing statement, please.
Yeah, I first want to thank the Uptown Business Association, Lake Street Council, Lena, and South Uptown Neighborhood for hosting this event, and thank all my fellow candidates for being here. I'm running for council because I want everyone who lives here to know that they belong and that this community has their back. We're here tonight focusing on safety, and I want to also, we've talked a lot about crime, but I also want to note that a number of folks I've talked to have been worried about how unsafe our streets are. The drag racing, the speeding vehicles, we need solutions for that. And this city is thankfully in charge of a lot of right of way, over 800 miles of it. And that means we can use design to make our streets safer. Concrete is a very powerful tool, and it means changing our processes around how we can create better street design. So thinking about speed bumps, I've had parents ask me, how can we slow down vehicles on our streets for our small children? And so right now the process is 75% of neighbors on a block have to create a petition and bring that to the city, and then to get those speed bumps put in, and then they're assessed directly to the adjacent property owners. Well, what if that is a block that has a lot of multifamily properties, or is a block that has lower income folks? So to me, that is an area of inequity, and that's the type of detail that we need to be looking at in terms of our processes within the city. And so that's the thing that I want to be working on. And I also want to note that this next council term is only going to be 2 years rather than the typical 4. 2 years is short. It's not a lot of time to learn the ropes of City Hall, understand these types of details. I've sat on a number of city advisory committees, and I've worked in City Hall, so I understand the dynamics of the various departments that the council oversees and what it takes to develop and adopt policy. And so given that, I'm ready to hit the ground running to serve my neighbors, as an engineer.
Thank you, Ms. Jones, for your closing statement. Isa Chukdai.
Yeah, I am a renter. I'm a union organizer, and I'm the firstborn daughter in a Muslim immigrant family. And I'm running for the Minneapolis City Council here in Ward 10 to make sure that everyone in our community is able to thrive, and that the voices of those who are the most marginalized in our communities are prioritized in decision making. I've spent my life caring for and supporting people in my community who have slipped through the cracks. And I, want to be a champion for policies that make our city more equitable and just. We know the stakes are incredibly high today for renters, for people living in poverty, for Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, and they're only getting higher. We need a leader who's going to fight for policies that leave no one behind, because they understand exactly what it's like to be left behind. I love this city and I love this community. I know that together we can build a Minneapolis and a Ward 10 where everyone has what they need to thrive, and a community that, honors people's dignity and demonstrates that a different and better world is possible. I've seen over and over again the ways in which the people in our community come together to support and protect one another in times of hardship and struggle. And it's that experience and expertise that I want to bring to our council office to better serve our residents, to build a more equitable city. Again, really, really thankful for our organizers today for bringing us together and asking really thoughtful questions. This is the first of this kind of forum that we've done so far, and really excited to fully earn your support. Early voting is open now through November 1st, and election day is going to be November 2nd.
David Wheeler.
I've lived in Minneapolis about 25 years. Moved here from my hometown of Duluth, where I served on the city council, where I worked with a somewhat dysfunctional council there and some real interesting characters. I sponsored the Human Rights Commission 25 years ago. We passed it over the veto of a conservative Christian mayor. I fought for equal rights for all people for a quarter of a century. I was involved in making sure we had traffic calming, which made it safer for pedestrians. I was involved in making sure that we got rid of toxic chemicals that washed into Lake Superior from city properties. I worked with a wide variety of people on the Minnesota Council of Cities, the National League of Cities. I served on DEDA, the Duluth Economic Development Authority, and whoever becomes our city council member needs to understand finance and understand it well. I have been president of the Board of Estimate and Taxation for a dozen years. I've worked with 3 mayors. I've worked with many city council people. I've worked with senior staff. I know how to do this job. I'm the only one who brings this level of experience and background. And because I have been a pastor much of my life, because I worked at a battered women's shelter doing communications and marketing, because I worked at an organization that worked with people with handicaps and developmental handicaps and mental illness, because I have done so many different things, I bring a life experience that will make a huge difference for all the people of Minneapolis. I am ready to do this job and to do it well. Thank you.
Chris Parsons.
I want to thank the Lake Street Council, the Uptown Association, and the Wedge neighborhood for putting on this forum. I've been, one of the first groups that I talked to was Loveland Lake Business Association. And they said that even before the pandemic and the unrest, they were struggling. And they were struggling because safety has been an issue, accessibility has been an issue, and that their concerns have just fallen on deaf ears. And these are people that really want what's best for the community. That was just first and foremost. I want you to know that I hear you. I hear you. And I will fight to help make our business community and our businesses in Ward 10 vibrant, because that's part of what attracts people to live in this area. I also pledge to work with the neighborhood associations to make sure that your neighborhoods are safe and livable. We need safe neighborhoods, but we also need deep reform in how we are policing. I hear that loud and clear. There are, a lot of great ideas out there, and there's a lot of good intentions, but none of that gets done unless you have people that can actually get it done. I invite everybody to go to www.christopherward10.com, look at my record, and see that I have been getting things done for many, many years. And I want to bring that to bear for the people of Ward 10. I became a firefighter because I wanted to help people. I became an advocate because I wanted to give people a voice. And now I'm running for city council because I want to serve the city that I grew up in and have lived the vast majority of my life in the city that I love. Please make me your first choice for Minneapolis City Council. Thank you.
Alicia Gibson.
Yes, thank you to all of our organizers. Thank you to my fellow candidates for joining us. We've had a really wonderful civil dialogue with each other, and I appreciate that. And I also want to thank everybody who continues to show up, participate, watch this forum in the middle of still an ongoing, COVID crisis. And so we're all exhausted. This is an extraordinary time that people will be interviewing us for primary history documents, and we'll be studying for many, many years, centuries. And so what I wanted to convey here is that this really is a moment where we can transform the way we do public safety. That's one of the reasons why I decided to run. And when I did, I sat down and thought, how am I going to put together the ideas and the policies? What is the framework? And that is the reason why when you go to votealiciagibson.com, what you'll see is not police reform, but restorative justice. Because we are in a moment where it is time for historical reckoning with hundreds of years of racialized violence and systemic racism. That is things that are the way the system itself is designed. When I was in law school, one of the things that I trained in was federal Indian law, and that's where I learned about restorative justice and restorative facilitation. We actually have an ecosystem in Minneapolis that is very strong in restorative justice. So I want us to grow that by partnering, by making training free to people so that we have more facilitators, more volunteers. And I also want to write those principles into the ways that we do things. Aisha was right to point out that that research also shows that more police can lead to over-policing. And the way we do that is to really change the way we think about being together in community and the way that we deal with harm. I've lost my timer here, so I'm assuming
let's thank you for just kind of stopping. Appreciate that. Uba Noor, I'll time you for your closing statement for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate for everyone, and thank you for the council. I know when the organization has been developed because of the reason what the business people want in our community and what they want to see. We love Lake Street. We all love Lake Street, and it was beautiful place, and we will come back. We still wishing for that. One of the reasons that I'm here and I'm running is that I'm running for city councilor for Ward 10. I've been here in Minneapolis for past 10 plus years. I've been working in the community, but any levels, non-profit organization, employment agencies, and director, coordinating, advocate, community engagement, business builder, trying to help people to actually start with their own business, to start their first business, and woman-owned business, Black women, women of color. We always say that we're gonna help women in color, and that's not reality. We wanna make sure that our community have what it needs to be getting done. And if I say I will be done, what needs to be done, I will be done. I've been in college and I graduated from here to university. I've been starting my own business. I've been helping in the community day and night. My phone is open. Everybody call me, their issues, the problem, I always try to solve. That's the person and that's the city councilor we all want. That is the one I will be. My door will be open. There will be 5 days in the office. But Saturday will be the day that I will see, because most of us working full time and don't even have a time to come to the office because of Friday is working day. But Saturday, the city office is not allowed to be open. But if I be selected, if you vote for me first, I'll be open that door and then we'll listen to each one of you, your problem, and try to solve. What we need our community is that to repeal, to recover about the mental illness, and to recover about what is going to happen in our community. We want to have our youth future. I'm here to show the hope our future needs to be moving forward. So what is that hope? What it looks like? We need better education. We need better business. We need better
It's 2 minutes,
people.
Ms. Noor.
Thank
you. You didn't have a warning, but no, sorry to abruptly stop you. Thank you. That's it. We packed in a lot. That was a forum. What a doozy. On behalf of the host organizations, thank you to all the candidates. Election night is November 2nd. Have a good night.